On episode 676 of the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we meet Tiffany Owen and discuss her book, Wounded to Warrior: How to Participate in Your Own Rescue. You can find the full show notes for this episode at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/676. Welcome to the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, the largest and longest running health and fitness podcast dedicated to people over 40. Whether you're looking to lose weight, get stronger, or improve your health and age better, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Coach Allen, an online health and fitness coach and author of The Wellness Roadmap. Each week, we dive into practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you take control of your health and fitness. If you're ready to look, feel, and perform your best, no matter your age, this podcast is the perfect place to start. Let's get you on the path to a healthier, fitter, and more energetic version of yourself. I hope you'll join us each week, and together we can unlock your full potential. Hello, and welcome to the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Allen. So glad to have you here, and welcome to 2025. A lot's changed in just the last few weeks. And I want to give you kind of a couple announcements of what that is, so you're up to date. You probably noticed that I did miss a couple of episodes. I was going through some personal things. My mother passed away, and it just really kind of threw me off schedule, off kilter. And so I didn't get those published. And this one is actually coming out a little bit late. I've been off for a while now, and I'm just trying to get myself back and organized. So I think this is my first step in making sure that happens. I shouldn't miss anymore, but this one's going out a little bit late, but I should be on track to get the rest of them on time. Because again, we're making a few changes here. You probably noticed the first change, if you've listened before, is that we did change the intro music. So there's new intro music. I got that going, so you'll be hearing this new music going forward. I hope you like it. We did have a vote on the Facebook group. If you're interested in being involved in the podcast at times in this way, I encourage you to join the group. You can go to 40plusfitness.com/group, and that'll take you to the Facebook group. And on the Facebook group, we do little things here and there. You'll get bits and pieces of the podcast, little bits and pieces of me. And then, every once in a while, I'll ask your opinion on some things or ask you for some help. And this was something that people voted on. And this particular version of the new intro music was the winner. So I hope you enjoy it. But this is what we'll be getting. You may have also noticed that Rachel is not here. She has decided to pivot and go after different opportunities outside of personal training. And so Rachel's not going to be with us anymore. That's another reason why changing the music was something I needed to get done. But she's okay. She just she's run its course with this. She's been with us for a while. I don't know if I'm going to bring on another co-host. For the meantime, probably just going to focus on doing interviews and doing the show that way. So this new format that we're doing today will pretty much be the standard going forward. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. Again, you can go to the Facebook group, 40plusfitness.com/group. And that's a great place to interact with me, ask questions. We can do that there. But most of the shows for the foreseeable future are going to be interview shows. I've got quite a few of them in the works right now. So I'm looking forward to some really cool shows and really cool guests that we're going to have over the course of the next weeks and months. So that's my hello section for this episode. Let's go ahead and get into the show. Our guest today is a life coach on a mission, empowering people to be radically transformed into their best version. Your pain is her purpose. With 20 years of experience in the health and fitness industry, she is a voice for those caught in a vicious cycle of self-sabotage. With no further ado, here is Tiffany Owen. Tiffany, welcome to 40 Plus Fitness.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So the name of your book was Wounded to Warrior: How to Participate in Your Own Rescue. I really like that. And I like that for a thousand different reasons. But one of the core ones is, and my wife said this last night. So I coach other coaches, and so I was on a coaching call last night, and he said a few things on the call, and my wife came in and said, "How old is he?" And well, the guy was probably, I don't know, maybe 30. And she said, because when he started, as soon as he started saying some of the things he said, it's like he just has this victim mindset
Mm.
that just is so prevalent today of woe is me, woe is me, woe is me. Um, and I like the whole idea that you can go at this and yeah, it's hard, but in the end, you have it within yourself to be your own hero.
Yeah. I just a little backstory. But before I dive into that, I do want to what you're doing is a mission with this podcast and what I'm doing with my book and all we want to help people and add value to their life. And I think sometimes people forget to review the podcast, share the podcast, like the podcast. Make sure you do that when you're listening to Alan because we can help more people if you remember to do that. And I just always like to remind listeners to do that. Um, my mind goes all over the place when you're talking because the woman that you're looking at today is not the same person I was 2.5 years ago. And if I can share a little bit of where I was and where I am now before we dive into being a victim, I had every right to feel like a victim, but it
Yeah.
was not serving me at all. And we can all become the dominant force in our life and we can live a life that happens for us and not to us. And that is what my book is about. So when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. 2.5 years ago, I'd hit my final bottom. And I'm sure that a lot of your listeners can relate. There's probably a lot of people listening who are just, man, they're just tired. They can't catch a break. Why does this always happen to me? You know, bad luck always happens. You're looking for the thing to come out around the corner and just get you. I'm always looking for the next worst thing to happen. So I'm ready. And 2.5 years ago, I was so miserable and tired of fighting that I tried to kill myself for the fourth time in my life. I am 43. I'm a mother of four. I'm about to be a grandmother in February. On the outside looking in, it looked like I had a wonderful life. And I do have a wonderful life, but I had not dealt with past trauma and addiction that was keeping me stuck and in a continuous cycle of self-sabotage. Um, I don't know where you want to go from there, but
Well, I think the key is, you had a kind of a roughish a roughish time, uh, is one way of saying it. And I don't want to belittle it a little bit.
yeah,
But one of the things that you did find yourself in was kind of this cycle of addiction.
yeah,
And that often was the driving force that was pushing you down each time you found yourself at a bottom, if you will. And,
yeah,
so it's hard to know, last bottom, but I think the way you're addressing life today, you probably can very much say that
yeah,
was the last bottom.
yeah.
But for much of your life, addiction was driving you a place you didn't need to be, and you struggled with that. Could you talk a little bit about addiction and some of your thoughts about it?
I would love that because like we were talking before we started recording, addiction's addiction. Fill in the blank. Addiction can be to food, pornography, sex, shopping, prescription pills, alcohol. Um, I want to share a quote from Joe Dispenza about what his definition of addiction is. It's really good and it'll kind of get you to think. Every addiction is saying the same thing. So, whatever you're addicted to, I'll never get enough of what I don't want. I'll never get enough of what I despise. So people are totally out of balance when they are chasing after something they don't want, right? But we want to change the way we feel. And it's easier to change the way we feel than to deal with hurt, trauma or take responsibility for our part in everything that happens. And I guess I wasn't ready yet, or I didn't know how. I wanted to stop, but I didn't know how. And um, that's why I'm so grateful for my bottom. And if you're in a place, if you're listening and you're at a bottom or rock bottom, that's a great place to be, because that most of the time will create change. It became life or death for me.
Yeah. Now, change is really probably the hardest thing that a human being can do. In the book, you shared 8 steps for life change. Would you mind sharing those with us?
I would. I love this. Thank you for allowing me to do this. This is one of my favorite parts about the book. So, everything changed when I, number one, stopped blaming everyone else for my problems, pain, and suffering. Number two, I took responsibility for my life and my choices. Number three, decided life happened for me and not to me. Number four, I decided to be the dominant force in my life. Number five, I decided to do whatever it took to be the woman God created me to be, no matter how uncomfortable I must get in the process. Number six, decided to get in the lifeboat that God kept bringing me instead of watching it pass me by. Number seven, I stopped making excuses and I started following through with the commitments that I made to myself. And number eight, I started declaring daily that everything always works out for me. And I have chills as I'm reading that,
Yeah.
because I still do this 2.5 years later. This is what I live by.
And I think that's what's really strong about it is that um, if we recognize the power we do have, and I think, yeah, the serenity prayer is probably the best statement of this is know the things we can't control, know the things we can control. And too often, we're trying to control the things we can't control, and we lose control of the things that we actually can control, which sounds backwards, but we do that to ourselves all the time. Um, when it came to certain things like alcohol and pills and things like that, at different points in your life, you were like, "Well, I got this. I can do this a little bit,"
Yeah.
and you've come to the conclusion now that now these need to be non-negotiables. These are hard stop. Not going there. I'm
Yeah.
not going to do it. Can you kind of explain that
So
step, because I
I,
think that's a big. So many people don't think like I don't have a problem until they have a problem, and then they're
yeah,
like, well, no, I got this. I feel good. I feel healthy. I feel where I'm supposed to be, and then it's like they let that back in.
I think it's so important to keep in mind that there's a process that we have to go through to go back to create change in rewiring our brain, because we are in a set of programs that we have grown up with, and there's something that has to take place to rewire your brain and create new neural pathways that creates change. I wanted to feel a certain way. I wanted to not want to drink anymore. I wanted to not turn to, I did extreme giving and serving. I donated my liver to a stranger with cancer, um, because I thought it would make me feel better. And it did for a minute. So I kept chasing that, what's going to make me feel good. And people do that with a lot of different things. And it's not always life or death, like alcohol or prescription pill abuse. So that's where I think there's an underlying problem, that people aren't miserable enough. They It takes a long time to get to a bottom with food addiction, sugar addiction, because there's so many pharmaceuticals that are treating health conditions that mask that. But there's something in your mind, if you're listening to this and you're yo-yoing and your weight loss journey or your fitness journey or your health journey, that is telling you, I need to get rid of this thing in my life. And it starts as a whisper. But what I've learned is when you ignore that, that whisper will become a scream, and it can lead to a lot of emotional, depression, things like that, shame, guilt. And I had to treat this like it was life or death. And my husband gave me a really good gift. He gave me an ultimatum, and he said, if you don't get help, you will lose your family and everything. And that's all I needed to hear. Sometimes that doesn't work for people. And when I look, and I tell my clients all the time, you have to look at this new healthy life as life or death. You have to look at it as an extreme. That will help you create the environment that you need to support your goals. So that in our environment shapes us. So getting rid of the things in your environment that do not support your goals is number one, the most important thing, because willpower does not work, right? So that it became, okay, what can I do? Because no one is going to rescue you. No one is going to dig you out of your hole but you. So what can I do? And that goes back to, what can I control? I can control what I allow into my environment. I can control what I put in my mouth. I can control what I say no to, what I say yes to. So I had to look at it in an extreme way and make drastic changes. Delay and delete and delegate. I had to delay some things. I had to delete some things out of my life, people too, right?
So I think that's where a lot of us struggle is that we read the stories or we watch the shows, and there's always a hero that swoops in at some point in the story to save us. But that's not how real life works. So if someone is considering some changes, they are looking to make some drastic changes, how do they participate in their own rescue? What does that look like? I know you went through it. You could probably tell stories, but
Yeah.
just what does that look like? What does that feel like?
First, you cannot change or heal what you don't acknowledge. I think coming out of denial, and I love Wayne Dyer, and I love what he says a lot, that we all have to take responsibility for everything in our life. And responsibility means to respond with ability, right? So I had to be open to everything and attached to nothing. And what do I mean by that? I had to be open to doing things differently. So I gave myself permission to think differently. That allowed me to make different choices and try things maybe that I would not have tried before because I was in a self-protective stand. Um, so first, coming out of denial and really taking responsibility for every area in your life, because that's how you get your power back. Then you can control what happens if you acknowledge that. Um, that's kind of a deep way, but that's how I started. And then I really did go into creating an environment that supported my goals. And I just did this with my clients. Recently, I challenged them to get rid of 3 triggers in their environment that were making them self-sabotage. This is great exercise. So this is what I would encourage some of your listeners to do. If you find yourself self-sabotaging, like, always starting over on Monday, your diet or your meal plan or whatever, or you're wanting to go to the gym and you go once, but then it falls apart. What is triggering that behavior? And they came up with what is distracting you? You don't even have to use trigger. You can say distraction. So I would identify 3 things that are keeping you from in your environment, that are keeping you from moving forward to the best version of you. And that could be certain foods, like get the food out of the house that you cannot trust yourself to eat in moderation. You need to throw it away. It may be the bowl you eat ice cream out of. I had one client who she stopped sitting in the recliner that she snacked in because she associated this recliner with eating the junk at night. And she's like, okay, I can't sit there anymore. And so she created another space to sit, deleting apps off your phone. There's all kinds of ways, but really acknowledging that willpower does not work and you have to create an environment that supports your goals. So getting rid of triggers is super important when starting a health journey, and set yourself up for success.
Okay. Well, while we're on that topic, what is a good way for someone to recognize a trigger
Mm,
or a distractions? Maybe a little easier to okay,
yeah.
yeah, I just lost an hour of my life
Mhm.
on this video game, or on this app or social media. But how does someone recognize that this trigger is causing them to do something that they wouldn't have otherwise done?
Yeah, that's a great question. Most of the time, I want to start with this. Most people do not succeed with their becoming the best version of them and getting healthy because of a lack of integrity. Okay. They do not have integrity with themselves. And people can they get a little bit uncomfortable when
Yep.
you,
You're calling them out.
yeah. So, okay. But uh, follow me here. So it starts with making a promise to yourself and then not following through with it. Every time you keep a promise that you make to yourself, that's a form of self love. Self discipline is a form of self love. So if you are making a promise to yourself and then doing something else that is keeping you from following through with that promise, that is probably something that needs to be removed. Maybe temporarily, maybe forever. Most of the time, we cannot trust ourselves in the beginning, so it probably needs to be removed. If that is keeping you from following through with that commitment to going to the gym or eating healthy movement, whatever, that's probably the distraction that doesn't need to be there any longer.
Okay, cool. All right. Now, you had something towards the end of the book that I really think is probably one of the most effective, if not the most effective ways for someone to really affect long lasting, deep change. So, this is not just changing your environment or changing the way you approach something. This is truly changing yourself from the inside out. And you called it a declaration affirmation paragraph. Could you kind of walk us through that process and what that does?
This is my favorite thing to talk about because it absolutely has changed my life and hundreds of my clients' lives too. And there's examples of my paragraph in the book and also my clients. And it's the first thing that I help people work on. So we're all having a conversation with ourselves always. Most of the time, people have negative things going on in their mind, they're saying negative. I use the word tapes. They're playing negative tapes, even though we don't have tapes anymore. Um, they're playing
If you're
negative
over
tapes.
40, if you're over
Oh,
40, you
right.
got
Okay, you get
tapes.
it. I know, like, should I say that more? Yeah, so we have negative tapes that play over and over in our head. And we want to replace those negative tapes with new tapes. So you have to replace something with, just like habits. You have to replace a habit with a habit. So we have to replace this self-talk, negative self-talk, with a more affirming, you know, self-talk. So we create a new narrative, and you don't have to feel it. And in the beginning, you won't feel it. And I was one, before I was open to everything, thought this was kind of stupid, to be honest. When you hear, motivational speakers say, oh, do the I am statements and the affirmations. But then when I did it for 3 years, and it changed my life and the way I looked. When you transform your mind, your body will follow. And I have transformation pictures of me and a lot of my clients, that it started by writing this paragraph that created a new narrative about their future self, who they aspire to be, their best self. And their bodies just like, I wasn't even trying to lose weight, and I lost 20 pounds and 5% body fat. It was incredible. That's the only thing I did different. So to start this, and it is a living document, so as you grow and progress in your journey, it will change a little bit. But you start by writing down all the negative things that you're saying to yourself and maybe even out loud. And I encourage people to ask a loved one, what do you hear me say? A lot of people will throw around as jokes, like, I'm just so stupid, or I can't ever get anything right. You don't even realize what you're saying. And you have to brain dump that, get that out. And then we take that and we flip it into the opposite. So we start with the adjectives that you do want to be. So, for example, mine are things like I am positive, I am joyful, I'm confident, I'm empowered, you know, as many as you want, right? The declaration part are statements about my future self that I want to become, but I declare them like they have already happened. And this sounds funny when I say it out loud, but one of mine 3 years ago was I look like a fitness model and I train like an athlete. And I do now. But when I wrote it 3 years ago, I did not. And so there's a bit of like manifestation. So when you were writing these things daily and mantras, I love my mantras, like everything always works out for me. I pivot easily. I can do hard things. I'm saying those things in my head instead of the negative things now. And I write it every single morning. And that's the key is consistency in writing it every single morning. And then all of a sudden, the negative is gone. And it is absolutely life changing. And you can add to it, take away, but it's life changing.
Yeah. A couple of key things that you've said about this is that one, you're saying them as if they're current reality, even when they're future uh, paced, meaning something that we believe is going to happen or want to happen in the future, but we accept them today as they are. Like this is just what it is. It may not be manifesting or showing today on the outside, but it's there. The seed is there. I believe it's there. And so we say it in a way, I am, and we say it those way. One of the key things that you also brought up is if you're wondering what those negative words are that you're saying to yourself, I can tell you there's three key words that if you say any of these three key words, this is probably one of them, one of your negative things. If you say the word never, you say the word always, or you say the word can't. Those three words tend to be the negative voice in your head talking to you. They your negative voice in your loves those three words because those three words are so definitive. They're like yes or no things. It's like you can't. There's no can is can't or always. And if you took a minute to step back, you'd be like, no, it's never been always. It's never been, never. And can't is just that you haven't yet. So all of those, I think those words, I just know when I'm looking at negative words, if I see one of those three words or hear myself think one of those three words, it kind of flags in my head. It's like, okay, Alan, you're letting him out again.
Yeah,
Time
that's
to rein that dude back in because he's up to no good.
that's really good. That's good stuff. Um, when we're I love the brain science behind all of this. When I could understand that I had the power to rewire my brain and create new neural pathways with these exercises like the paragraph, it almost gave me an out of body experience of what is possible. So the longest distance you'll ever travel is between your head and your heart. I knew these things, but I wanted to feel these things. And the paragraph is a tool that helped me actually feel them, but it took, maybe if you're lucky, it might take a few months, but it's taken years to really be solidified. What we focus on grows, what we think about, we bring about. You know, if we're looking for it, we will find it, right?
Yeah. Well, and the other side of it is this is a living, breathing thing. So your initial changes, your initial target, and all of that's from a perspective of maybe being deep down in a dark little hole. And so it's really hard for you to see and truly aspire, so that you're making these statements in such a way that you're like, okay, this is it. So as you start to come out of that hole, now you get a better view of what's available, which mountains you can actually climb. Because it's one, when you're in a hole, you're not looking for mountains to climb, you're looking to get out of the hole. And then once you're out of the hole, you start to realize there's all these opportunities around you that you weren't even aware of. And now you're able to open yourself up and say, hey, I know this is who I'm supposed to be. I know this is what I'm supposed to do. And then now you have this tool, this paragraph that you can rewrite to make that your new future.
I love that's a great point. My paragraph started with like 5 sentences. And because it's a living document and I have realized what is possible, and I feel I've I'm not so depressed or suicidal anymore. So I have added words and aspirations to the paragraph, but when I'm helping a client with this, I give them permission to use stuff from my paragraph or other people's paragraph until they can feel it on their own or think of something on their own. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, because it's hard to, you can't read the label when you're inside the jar, right? So it's really hard sometimes to think, well, I have no idea what I want to be. I don't even know where to start. So that's why I gave a lot of examples in my book, and I'm like, use mine until you find your own.
Yeah. Now, if Tiffany, if someone, oh, sorry, I define wellness as being the healthiest, fittest, and happiest you can be. What are three strategies or tactics to get and stay well?
So I mentioned this before. I think giving yourself the gift of permission to think differently. So that means we're going to like set our ego on a shelf and be open to new things, like things you talk about getting healthy. You have to be open to trying them. When I'm talking or Alan's talking, we're suggesting this paragraph thing, be open to it. It may or may not work for you, but being open and curious and having a growth mindset when you start on a health journey is key. Also, taking responsibility for every area of your life. I think that is huge. And that is a big part of how you participate in your own rescue. It all starts with taking responsibility and owning it. And the third, we didn't talk about this, but something I love to do with my clients is we share our wins with each other. I even have an app that's about to come out. I got this from the book The Gap and the Gain. Have you read it?
Yes, I have.
Okay, one of my favorite books, so I like to give them credit. So one of the authors of the book has been doing this like 30 years. And it goes along the premise of what you focus on grows. And if you're looking for it, you will find it. So I start out and we're accountability partners. I have them in small groups, and you have to have somebody to hold you accountable. But at the end of the day, you're going to write down 3 wins that you had for the day. I really struggled with celebrating small things because I thought, well, why should I celebrate something that you should just do anyway? Nothing was ever good enough. I would succeed at something and then the goalpost would move. By learning how to celebrate wins throughout the day has changed my perspective. And not every day is a good day, but every day is a day that I'm at least learning. So you can turn a bad day into a good day by saying, what did I learn and what did this make possible? So you get into the habit of writing these 3 wins down. So you're going to bed with a sense of accomplishment. And then you also share 3 wins that you plan on getting tomorrow. It's setting your intentions for the day. So when you wake up with them on your mind, you're more likely to get them. And that could be get my workout in, drink all my water, make my bed, anything that's going to, those healthy habits. And if you have to write it down every single day and maybe you don't get it, that's okay. Just move it to the next day. The practice of you find what you're looking for and what you focus on grows. That is the whole exercise behind the wins. And I've been doing that over 3 years now. It's life changing too, like the paragraph.
Awesome. Tiffany, if someone wanted to learn more about you, what you're doing, and your book, from warrior to, I'm sorry,
That's okay.
from wounded to warrior, where would you like for me to send them?
So first, you've inspired me. I started listening to your stuff as soon as I knew I was going to be visiting with you. And you are very generous with your audience and how you serve them. And so I want to give, if it's okay, a free gift to your audience for those of you who maybe just on the couch and not knowing what to do next, but you want to do something. I want to offer you a free gift. And let me tell you what that is first and then where to find me. It is called the Holistic Wellness Kickstart. Basically, I'm going to give you one full body workout that you can do from home or anywhere, just a basic workout, 7-day meal plan that's all whole foods. It's just healthy eating, and a guide. And an invitation to one group mindset mastery Zoom. So, what is this mindset coaching all about? I'm going to invite you to that. You can find me. I'm more active on Facebook, Tiffany Owen on Facebook. I have a green shirt on and really muscular arms because I'm sure there's other Tiffany Owens. Somebody told me you probably need to describe yourself. You can private message me on Facebook, the keyword radical. Okay. Keyword radical. You can also private message me on Instagram, Coach Tiffany Owen, the keyword radical, and I will email you. I'll get your information and email you the gift. You can also find me on my website, coachtiffanyowen.com. You can book me for speaking. You can buy my book. My husband and I also host health and wellness retreats. And so all the information is there, and you can message me the keyword there. And you can find my book on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and Walmart.
Cool. All right. So you can go to the show notes and I'll be sure to have links there for all of that. Tiffany, thank you so much for being a part of 40 Plus Fitness.
Thank you. This was fun.
If you enjoyed today's show, take a moment to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you would, please leave us a rating and review on your podcast player of choice. Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, we meet Kara Metz and discuss her book, The Menopause Metabolism Fix. Until then, have a happy and healthy week.